Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Andres Escobar Talk Show, Episode 9. This is Julia Laudero, Director of Business Development at LMA Escobar Architecture, DPC. Let me introduce you to our special guest of the day, David Freshwater, Chairman of Watermark Retirement Communities. Welcome to the show, David.
Well, thank you for having me.
First things first, we would love to know more about Watermark Retirement Communities. So I will leave you the opportunity to give us a complete introduction of the company.
Well, great. So we're a 30 plus year old company. And the reason I say sorta is that back in the mid 80s, I started a company called The Fountains. We sold that company in 2005, and immediately upon selling it, my brother-in-law, David Barnes, and I started over with Watermark. So we kind of didn't skip a beat. So we had built The Fountains up to about 19 communities around the country. And when we sold it, we had one left. And then from that one, we have now built Watermark to 60 plus communities around the country, including a couple in China as well. So it's been quite an exciting 30 plus years of operating in senior living. That's all we do. By the way, Watermark does not do anything but independent assisted living, memory care, and nursing within CCRCs and retirement communities around the country.
Fantastic. And I know specifically that one of these retirement communities by Watermark is Watermark at Brooklyn Heights at 21 Clark Street, on which you had the opportunity to work with Andres specifically. And everyone is extremely excited about the upcoming opening. Andres, can you tell us, I know that this was the first project in terms of retirement communities done by LMA Escobar. What was the design process, and what do you think was the key factor that made David select the company to work with?
Well, I think that we went through a pretty in-depth sort of presentation and understanding of what our strengths as a company and as an individual, as a designer, what we have worked in the past. And since we have done extensive both residential, and when I mean residential, both condominium and rental buildings in the greater New York City area predominantly. One of the things that appealed to David and his team was the fact that we also had this hospitality background. And the idea was to be able to inject this sort of resort style type of a timeless classical environment. And we did the presentation and they kind of liked what I had to say, and we moved on with this sort of approach. And I believe that we managed to deliver what they had in mind. And I think for David was a very special project. I would almost kind of say that it's almost like a flagship community, given the fact where it is located, given the fact that it is in New York City, Brooklyn predominantly. And it came out exactly the way that I just described it. It's timeless, it's classical, it's transitional. It would last the test of time. And one of the issues sometimes when designers approach projects, they make it perhaps a little bit too trendy and then they date fairly quickly. And I think that this particular community will endure the test of time. It's quite well appointed, and the amenities and everything else that we're going to be discussing with David.
If you want me to jump in, I can say what was the deciding factor for us in choosing your firm. It was, I think you said it in the introduction. You said you didn't have any experience in senior housing, so this was your first time, and that was actually a positive for us, not a negative. And the reason for that is, a lot of times those firms that specialize in senior housing think they know how to do senior housing. And to your point, they all kind of come out looking the same. So what a lot of firms have done, in 2000 or 2005 are exactly what they're still doing in 2020. So we selected you because you did have that residential background, because that's important to make, because it is people's homes. But more importantly was that hospitality background, so that you could bring that to the table without any preconceived notions of what a senior housing community should look like. And I think we succeeded in a product that is, as you said, timeless, classical. It certainly meets and fulfills the vision of that particular building and that location. And I think because of your experience in hospitality and housing, so it was a perfect fit for us on this project.
Actually, a very, very interesting collaboration. And one of the things that was very special to me is that, there has to always be chemistry, right? And I could safely say that David and I got along quite fine, and we saw eye to eye, and we understood that this was a collaborative effort in order to be able to deliver such impeccable plays. You need to be able to communicate and to discuss and to come up with options. And there was a great opportunity to sort of like allow people to navigate throughout the space, from the lobby to the library, to the great room restaurant, to the Italian restaurant in the basement. So is in the cellar. There's many aspects of this project that is even more comprehensive than some hotels. You have a spa, you have a swimming pool, you have a theater, you have wonderful spaces for the memory care. And that was one of the things that impressed me about David a lot. He wants to make sure that every single area is well curated. Without memory care in particular impressed me the most, because when we came up with the idea of having sort of like a solarium, so take away a space, create a solarium that basically allow people to actually do planting and to be in a totally, even though you're inside, you feel like you're outside, and how that restaurant area and breakout area for the memory care is as good or better than any restaurant that you could probably sometimes find. So great. And I think that David could, add to what I just said, but I think that I'm very, very proud to have been part of this project. I think that the results are at the level that we were all expecting it to be, and nothing better than to see a happy client that, in my opinion, became more of a friend than a client.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I was going to say, is that, when you are collaborating, whether it's on the design or whether you're, working with equity partners or whoever, there's a lot of characters that come together, kind of like a movie, where, you have the director and the producer and the actors and all that stuff. And, a big project like this, because this was well over $300 million project coming together. One key element that I found over the years is that you have to enjoy what you're doing. You have to have fun. There has to be some playfulness in that. And that's what we got in working with you, was that it wasn't a fight. Sometimes when you're working with designers, they have their idea of what it should be. It was a collaboration. It was, as I said, it was more playful. You had your ideas, I had my ideas, and then we kind of would come together and gel those. And then even Rachel Rangelove, who was the project manager, really enjoyed working with you guys. And that made it fun too, because she has her ideas as well. So we blended them all together. It was actually a lot of fun.
It's almost like every area of the project was a project in itself, which is interesting to say, because the venues are so different that you are actually allowed to create sort of like this connectivity through the common areas, but then to be able to create a special moment, whether it's at the beauty salon, whether it's at the F&B Italian restaurant, or whether it's at the Grey Room, which is unbelievable. I would even suggest that there's many people who love to have a restaurant of that caliber, and it happens to be part of the whole community, which is unbelievable.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the Breakfast Nook first, because, as I mentioned, this is I think it's $340 million project. And there we were in a design meeting with probably 15 people in the meeting. And you and I were pulled aside working on what probably was, what would you guess, maybe $2,500 to build this little nook. And we were spending all that time to get it just perfect, because it is about the experience. And that little nook came out beautifully, by the way, is where I can see a lot of residents coming down in the morning. You know, maybe at 6:15, 6:30 in the morning, there aren't other residents up, the caregiver's there. They both sit together in that little breakfast nook, have their coffee, maybe cereal or whatever, or breakfast. And it'll be a very special, very home-like space. And it'll make someone's life, you know, much, much better because of it. And had we just, you know, sort of said, okay, what you had done is fine. And if we didn't really fight for that space, it really wouldn't be there and it wouldn't be special. So those are the little things. And you'd go to the library. A library is beautiful. We couldn't have really messed it up. But what we did was kept working until we got it to the point where it was, just like you said, I keep coming back to the word, but it was timeless. You know, that room could be in any New York hotel, you know, boutique hotel or whatever, and it's going to be spectacular. And the reason that's so important is that if everything is the same, you know, throughout a community, you know, it's a hotel, that's okay. If you say, well, the bar has the same theme as the restaurant, which is the same kind of general theme as the lobby, let's say, because you're only visiting for 1 or 2 days. So you come in and you enjoy, look at this beautiful lobby or this beautiful bar. But when you are living there every day, to have the variety of spaces that still wow you as a resident is a challenge. And I think we pulled it off, or you pulled it off. I think it was spectacularly. I think it came out, obviously it came out exactly like the renderings. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, and but I like I said, you know, is I always put myself in a position, if I were to have one of my relatives staying in a place, how should it look like? And this would be the perfect space. So there's a lot of love being given through the design and through the efforts and through your personality. I think that Watermark exudes that caring aspect of making sure that you're delivering the best possible vehicle to the residents, which is quite wonderful, because that is what differentiates certain developers or providers from somebody like yourself. I mean, David is really true to his beliefs, and I think that it shows by virtue of the quality of the communities that he delivers.
Oh, well, thank you. You know, about 20 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, I was sitting around at a conference talking to CEOs and just having a glass of wine or a beer after, you know, between the sessions and when dinner was. And the topic came up of all of us CEOs and presidents and chairmen and that sort of thing. Would you live in any of your communities? And this was 15, 20 years ago. And to a man, we all said no. There wasn't anything that we were building that we would want to live in. And that's when, you know, it hit me really hard, because, you know, if that's the truth, then why am I putting a product out there that I wouldn't really want to live in? And for the last, you know, I've made it my mission that you said you'd be happy to have you try to envision your relatives living there. I make it simpler. I want to just envision myself living there, and the cafe, the theater, the restaurants, the library, all of those spaces are spaces that I would feel very, very comfortable living in myself right now. So, you know, with that in mind, I think we achieved what we were trying to do. And I think it's also sad that we have in the industry, you know, people who are responsible for building these products and not really recognizing that, you know, we're allowing our designers to design things that honestly we wouldn't want to live in. And I can tell you the projects that we're doing too with you in Florida, and those are cool. I mean, I'd live in those, and again, the same thing, right? We were right down to the pattern in the carpet. No change that. We want this or we want that. I mean, it's fun working with you because I think you get it. You understand that vision is really just envisioning what it's going to be like and what it's going to be like living there. And that's what makes a good designer.
Well, thank you so much, Devin. To be with us today was really such a pleasure. And to all our viewers, thank you so much for watching, and see you to our next episode. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.